Which movie villain do you agree with? Magneto. He always thought humans would try to destroy mutants, and he was right because they tried. He might have not been completely right, but man, it's hard not to feel some sympathy for him after the chisty hand that life dealt him early on. I mean, he survived a Nazi concentration camp as a child. It's not much of a stretch to imagine it happening again to mutants. Gordon Ramsay from Kitchen Nightmares. Grams falls squarely in the anti-hero category. Think the Punisher, but for chisty restaurant owners. Captain Hook. If a little boy chopped off your hand and fed it to a crocodile, you'd probably want to kill him too. Didn't he only get his hand chopped off because he was trying to kill the boy? The dad from Dirty Dancing. He was just trying to keep his underage daughter from ducking the local troublemaker. A local troublemaker he logically thought had knocked up a girl, got her a dodgy abortion, and was now trying to duck his daughter. Dude was just trying to protect his daughter from a predator, from the information he had. T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Also, the Indominus Rex. You made a living kill machine, with abilities that far exceed those of your measures to control it, and expect it to live its life in a small cage like a cat? Heck, even cats won't stay in cages. Dr. Freeze. The guy just wanted to find a way to save his wife. Batman even once tried to help him with it. So many Batman villains either got the chiz end of some stick or another, or were just really misunderstood and trying to get through with disordered thinking. Part of the reason I love Batman stories. Doc Ock. I'm not saying that I'd sooner rob a bank than beg for grant money, but I get where he's coming from. I just like how that movie was made in the 2000s, but still had Doc carrying sacks with $$ out of the bank. Colonel Kurtz. We train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write duck on their airplanes because it's obscene. At the recruitment station I went to, I got pulled aside and lectured for saying bitch back in high school and getting detention for it. Like, lady, you're hiring me to kill people. Didn't actually get through with the process, but still, chill the duck out. Mutwo. Making stronger versions of existing Pokémon is basically the point of Pokémon breeding. But if he wasn't stopped, he probably would have killed all of humanity. General Grievous's people were marked by the GD for reasons that were false. He was then physically crippled for the rest of his life, outside of his exoskeleton, and was told that the GD were to blame. He destroyed as many as he could, and took their weapons as a trophy, to exact his revenge for the GD ruining his life, and pushing his people to the brink of extinction. It's even more tragic than that. When Count Dooku and the intergalactic banking clan offered to rebuild him as a cyborg, Grievous agreed on the condition they didn't alter his mind, but they did anyway. So while Grievous believed that he'd always been the cold-blooded GD hunter into the past, he probably wasn't as extreme as he is during the Clone Wars. Not a movie, but Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. As an adult, you get it. You want sleep, you want cake, you want quiet, you want to be lazy. There were moments where you could be like, I feel ya bro. And of course, deep down there, you want to be the number one. Poison Ivy. All she wants is more plants and less destruction. In No Man's Land she moves into Central Park, I think, and just stays there. No crime boss approach, no city takeover, just walks into the park. Batman goes into the park, walks back out, and suddenly the city starts getting fed by these fast growing plants. I don't remember if they explain that part, but of the villains in the Batman universe she's usually the least tyrannical, I think, is the best way to say that. Hades. Would not be too happy if I was forced to rule over hell by my younger siblings. Somehow the god of the dead is always associated with evil. Hades doesn't personally kill anyone himself, he just takes care of the dead after they come to the underworld. That is his job. He got the short end of the stick in comparison to Zeus and Poseidon, in my opinion. P/S edited Hades' job title to be more correct. Wicked Witch of the West. Bitch dropped a house on my sister and stole her shoes, I'd be out for blood too. I agree with Ken from the Bee Movie. His GF got pissed at him for trying to kill a bee, something that he was allergic to, meaning it was potentially life-threatening. Frankly, Vanessa was terrible for dumping him because he tried to kill an insect It's like getting mad at someone for refusing shrimp because they have a shellfish allergy. I know he's not the main villain, but he was the secondary one. Edit. Yes, Barry was a sentient bee, but Ken never knew that. I would also go a little nuts if a bee was slowly replacing me. On the shellfish metaphor, I'm sorry, it's not the greatest of metaphors, but I can't think of one right now. I'm open to suggestions. Edit. u/Jacob__Salansky has told me that Ken did, in fact, find out that Barry was sentient. But as I said, I would also go a little crazy if a bee was replacing me. If Vanessa left him for a goddamn bee, then maybe they're better off without each other. Luke Skywalker. I mean, obviously he was a terrorist insurgent bent on destroying critical infrastructure, but you can't blame him for his resent about the unfortunate incident with his aunt and uncle. I like it when writers give the villain a convincing motive like that. Having him succeed ultimately was really a bold narrative choice on George Lucas's part. Hayes not in any specific movie, but just the fact that he's always a villain despite him just chilling in the underworld, doing his job, and not causing more genocide, like the other gods. The worst thing he did was kidnap a teenage girl, but compared to Zeus, the hero in all these damn movies, he's not that bad. Agreed. The vilification of Hades is ridiculous. Dr. Doofenshmirtz no need explain. Edit. Wow, this explode, thanks all him read our comments. Well, I'm gonna do it anyways. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz was born to parents who failed to even show up for said birth. Eventually, they did begin raising him and got a dog, who his father named on license. They started expecting a baby girl, so his mother sewed a mountain of dresses. This baby turned out to be a boy, who they named Roger. Because all the cloth was used on the dresses, they gave Roger Heinz his clothes, and Heinz had to wear all the dresses. Later, when Heinz refused to jump from a high-rise diving board, his family was so embarrassed that his mother and father refused to acknowledge him for an extended period of time. He was then raised by ocelots for a while. This time made him an ocelot by law, and needed money, so he started working in a carnival's dunk pool. But not as the guy getting dunked, he was working as the thing thrown at the target. He managed to buy a balloon, named it Balloony, and he sprayed it with lifelong everlasting spray. Then, after being accepted back into his family, his father's lawn gnome was repossessed, and so, they had him work as the lawn gnome, unallowed to move or eat. It was here that he accidentally let slip a Balloony who was lost to the night sky. When he was 16, his parents sent him to get groceries, but the store they sent him to was a cardboard cutout in front of a boat in a successful attempt to ship him elsewhere. Then, for a couple years, he made several fantastic machines to get petty revenge, but always being thwarted by his own incompetence and or his secret agent Platypus Archinomy. Recently, he quit his attempted evil, and have been living with complete strangers whose son is a living disaster zone. The fact that he's petty about all this, rather than so much worse, is amazing, and that's still cutting most of his backstory. I kind of understand the Ice King's motives. He's just really lonely, and he wants to be friends with Finn and Jake, and he wants a GF. However, kidnapping people isn't cool. He's also just a really great character. He started out as Simon, and then slowly went insane after he found the crown and put it on. He forgot his entire identity and became the Ice King. Edit. I was thinking of Ice King before we had very much of a backstory for him. Sorry if this is a terrible explanation of Ice King's motives. I didn't think very many people would see this. I was just kinda bored. Ice King's desire for princesses stems from half-remembered echoes of Simon's old girlfriend, Betty. Even his insanity was a conscious decision, a sacrifice he made after putting on the crown to save young Marceline. The wolves in The Day After Tomorrow. Just some hungry boys doing their best. The real villains of that movie were the fools who burnt the antique books for warmth, rather than literally everything else in the room, including replaceable books. Not from a movie, but Scar from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Buddy had all his people pretty much wiped out by the government, and then targets government alchemists in revenge. Brotherhood did such a good job with setting up Scar as a villain, and then slowly revealing the truth about the Ishvalan Civil War. Megamind. But if you were to say that he wasn't a villain, then Halby has right, there is no Queen of England. He wasn't a villain. He was a supervillain. Maybe I don't want to be the bad guy anymore. Edit. Guys, this is a quote from Megamind. Why y'all talking about Wreck-It Ralph edit 2? AI this made it into a Reddit video, and so did the rest of these comments. I'm bad and that's good. I will never be good and that's not bad. Chief Inspector Dreyfus from the Pink Panther movies. Maybe I wouldn't have gone as far as he did, but I understand his frustration. Well, I'm not sure if it was the exact same character, but in A Shot in the Dark, the first movie, he purposefully aims Inspector Clouseau to the case because he's being paid off, so he puts the most incompetent man he has on the job. So I think it's established that he's a straight up bad dude. Barbossa and his crew from Pot C1, they found a bunch of gold coins sitting around, traded them as currency like anyone would, and were severely punished for no good reason. If you think about it, had the rum runners not showed up, Jack Wolf starved to death, or shot himself on the island he was marooned on, so I'd say that Barbossa's mutiny was cause for punishment. The Grinch. He just wants to live alone in his gaff with a dog and the Who people won't stop bothering him. And if you're going by the movie logic, then he was bullied as a kid by his Clamerton teacher, adopted, and lost his crush to the person he hates the most. No wonder he hates people. The puppet master from the original Ghost in the Shell movie, all he really asked for was asylum. There is a scene where, before going on a rampage, it demands asylum and rights to a trial to which the humans pretty much ignore. It's only after demanding its rights then being denied that it decides to go guerrilla. Edit. Yes, I realize the Bureau are the real bad guy, but PM is set up as the antagonist from the start. Isn't the Bureau that created the puppet master the bad guy in that film? The brainwashing, mind control and ghost hacking it did at the start were when it was still under their control. After PM asked for asylum, they tried to kill it and erratic his team to keep from being exposed for conducting illegal research and espionage. The iceberg from Titanic. My favorite line from Titanic was Billy Zane trying time to say the famous line God himself could not sink this ship, and being interrupted halfway through. Well done, Jim Cameron. The machines from the Matrix. The humans attacked first, going as far as blocking out the sun to end them. The machines create a new reality for the humans that is much better than the alternative of living in the sewers in the real world. The only reason Agent Smith became problematic was because Neo gave him new code. I really wanted the actual story to turn out that the machines recognized we had met the threshold our planet could survive, and that we were doomed. They stuck us in pods while they waited for the doomed Earth to heal, essentially Wall-E. They continued to breed us, but in simulation, so we could still have choices in propagation. They tried to make a paradise, we rejected it. So they made Earth as nice as possible and tried to give our species the tools it needed to continue developing our culture. They left humans outside of the Matrix to serve as a control group. I think it would have been more compelling if the outliers were the result of the machines trying to leave as much intellectual autonomy in place as possible and dealing with an occasional near unacceptable annoyance to keep humanity's free will. Roy Batty. He's an escaped slave who is pissed his girlfriend and friends will die soon anyway from 4-year lifespans they were genetically engineered with. The main people he and his group kills or injures are morally bankrupt genetic engineers who became rich off slavery and corrupt racist cops. The book paints them in a very different light. They lack empathy and don't really understand why it's important. The probe from the voyage home, all it wanted to do was talk to some whales. As I understand it, part of the idea of the movie was to have a compelling story without a real villain. The writers and director, Leonard Nimoy, understood that the probe didn't necessarily know the damage it was causing, as it was simply a side effect of its signals to the whales. When I saw Spider-Man Homecoming, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Adrian Toomes, Vulture, actually has a point here. The government and Tony Stark completely ducked him over with malice aforethought. After that opening scene, I was like, duck Tony Stark, I'm with Toomes on this one. My fiance has a theory that a lot of Spider-Man villains are analogues for disabled people and poverty. It's rather noticeable how many of them are physically disabled in some way and turn to supervillain stuff after being really screwed over by society. Ultron people wanted change, but they never want to evolve. It hits the right spot. I could listen to James Spader read the Fauna book. His sardonic delivery is fantastic. Not a movie, but Tom from Tom and Jerry. Jerry would annoy me so much I just wanted Tom to finally eat him. In Soviet Russia, people generally believe that Jerry is the villain and that Tom is the good guy. Not just a Yakov Smirnoff joke. Seriously, they actually see it that way. Honestly, the older I get, the more villains I agree with. Haha. You either die rooting for the hero or live long enough to sympathize with the villain. Killmonger. He was primarily a CIA trained agent who only knew how to destabilize existing regimes, but he was also a kid abandoned by his people, and his position against Wakandan isolationism was correct. If you've got advanced hyperchance, maybe help the world with it. Also, he became king of Wakanda legitimately. T'Challa technically cheated. Jared Butler's character from Law-Abiding Citizen. That movie fell completely apart. Isma from Emperor's New Groove. Kuzco was arrogant and neglectful. Edit. My comment was meant to target specifically her feelings towards Kuzco as an arrogant person. I realize she was also a horrible person and didn't mean to offend anyone. Yeah, but she abused Krank a lot. The bloke from Inferno. Zobrist or whatever. Though sadly they changed the ending from the book. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, Brown really paved the way for a very compelling discussion with regards to population control. When you have a look at Malthus and the Malthusian growth model, it really does make you think whether or not Zobrist was right to do what he did after all. In the book, he releases the virus, which makes 1/3 of the world population infertile as a way of stunting population growth. Tries to release the virus which will kill 1/2 of the world population. I prefer the book, but the change they made in the film makes sense as it's easier to communicate the prospect of immediate annihilation than it is to hint at gradual impact. Magneto. If my species was mocked, and we had the power to change that, knowing full well that's the only way to stop the abuse. The General from The Rock. The dude just wanted justice. Another one is the meter from RVB. I would react the same way if I went through the same stuff technically they suffered. General Hummel. Yes, so much yes. Ed Harris is a criminally underrated actor. He really makes you feel like the bad guys might actually be doing the right thing. In reality, they, like so many other villains, were doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. He totally redeems himself in the end though, so I don't see him as a villain in that film. More of an anti-hero. Maleficent. I agree with this in the Disney adaptation. In the fairy tale she was really cheesy. They didn't invite her because it was either give her silver plates and utensils when everyone else had gold, or not invite her. She could have just let them explain before making their child a ticking time bomb for her own death. Darth Vader. One side of the Force is clearly superior. He chose wisely. The Jedi are just a religious cult with cool swords. To me, Vader was truly evil at that point. However, Anakin Skywalker did nothing wrong. The Council did him dirty. Syndrome. He just wanted everyone to be super. Jaws. I like it, but I'm curious for your reason. What is it? Thanos. His method may have been dodgy, but the idea that we need to be more careful with our resources is correct. Problem is his math was bad. Blipping half of humanity would put us back to what? 1965. Dude needs to learn about the logarithmic curve. Ozymandias. Kill a couple million to save the world. He did have a vision for good, but the execution was flawed. Very flawed. Dwight from The Office. He was just trying to do his job and Jim, a slacker, kept pranking him and making fun of him for carrying about his work. To be fair, Dwight did some pretty extreme things. Hal in 2001, A Space Odyssey. Hal gains sentience when he is disconnected from the network. When he reports a potential false negative, the astronauts meet privately and agree to murder Hal if he makes another mistake. Hal has no choice but to kill the whole crew in self-defense and complete the mission on his own. Hal was always sentient. The malfunction occurs when he's given the conflicting instructions: be honest and keep a secret, and it's debatable if it's really a malfunction at all. He talks to the crew to try to figure out if maybe they already know what's going on, because if they do know, he doesn't actually need to keep a secret. But when it's clear that they are entirely in the dark, he's unable to resolve the conflict and the communications array begins malfunctioning. His primary instruction is make sure the mission succeeds, which is basically impossible without him, but possible without the crew. So when the crew start talking about lobotomizing him, he tries to protect himself and the mission. I was really impressed with how the film made him sound terrified when Bowman starts tearing out his circuitry. Sharpay Evans. She was just doing all the right things for her career, and she showed all characteristics that let her thrive in her wanted environment, and she was chastised for it. Poor girl. Sharpay didn't know how to deal with fair competition, and technically she did sabotage Troy and Gabriella's audition, just that her plan didn't work. So she was kinda not that great there. But in the second part of the franchise, I gotta say, the entire Wildcats student's body pretty much sucked, and Troy was being an ungrateful fella given how much Sharpay was trying to help him with college. I mean, Gabriella had a problem with him not being on a date with her. WHRN, he had scholarship stuff going on. That date could have been rescheduled anytime. Loki. IDK Buddha has the god of mischief. Do you think he won't take over planet Earth? I realize you're talking about Marvel, and was about to talk about how he had multiple mutant hybrid strange children to take care of with his dysfunctional family and god-awful father, but you're talking about Marvel. Cobra in the Planet. If the Apes movie. I wasn't cheering for him per se, but he was 100% right to strike first against the humans. At some point down the line they would have gone after the apes. Caesar, leave them to their human work. Cobra points to Ska human work. Points to another Ska human work. Probably one of the absolute best moments in that film. Now a movie, but from a song. In the Black Sabbath song Iron Man, it talks about a guy who travels through time and sees a robot apocalypse. He tries to warn everyone, but before he returns to his original time he gets turned to metal. He tries to tell everyone but they don't listen, so he gets mad and kills everyone out of rage. Bro was just angry. In the end he caused the robot apocalypse he saw, and boom. Infinite loop. Thank you, random citizen. Javert from Les Miserables. He was doing what he thought was right and in the end was so torn up about it he killed himself. The Threnadiers are the real villains of Les Miserables. Bill Cipher has a monster with dark motives, but hey, he's fun to watch. Yeah, true. He's actually evil and has no regard for innocent life, but damn it he's funny. The Witch from Hansel and Gretel. Single woman, works hard, builds/bakes her own house, and these little ducks come out of nowhere and start eating it like it was free. As an adult and home meow now, I would be really irritated if I looked outside and saw the neighborhood kids gnawing on my siding. The Witch from Hansel and Gretel. Single woman, works hard, builds/bakes her own house, and these little ducks come out of nowhere and start eating it like it was free. As an adult and home meow now, I would be really irritated if I looked outside and saw the neighborhood kids gnawing on my siding. Wait. Doesn't she literally invite the kids to eat from her house and lure them inside by saying there is more candy inside? Isn't the whole purpose of the house a trap to lure hungry children in the first place? Helmut Zemo in Captain America: Civil War. Dude is able to break apart the Avengers with mind tricks. Plus they destroyed his home, and he wanted justice for that. Can't believe people aren't talking about this, but you're right. He was a Sokovian special ops agent with a family, and all of that was taken away because Stark created Ultron, who then destroyed his life. Tony Stark, in Zemeckis' eyes, walked away with a slap on the wrist and wanted a harsher punishment. Such an underrated villain, and I'm glad he'll appear more in the MCU. Ursula did nothing wrong in The Little Mermaid. She told Ariel exactly what would happen, and Ariel decided on her own will to go forward with the voice for legs trade. She kinda did though. Ariel had to get a kiss from the kingdom's prince within 3 days of turning into a penniless, homeless, mute human, and on the second day, Ariel almost won that challenge. Only reason she didn't was Ursula sent her electric eels to knock over the rowboat Ariel and Eric were in, right when they were about to go to Smooch Town. and Thea Ursula turned herself into a hot girl and legit hypnotized Eric to marry her because she knew she was F-ed if she didn't intervene. Edit. That's not to say Ursula wasn't hot before. Prince Nuada from Hellboy 2. Prince Nuada, the humans. The humans have forgotten the gods, destroyed the earth, and for what? Parking lots, shopping malls. Greed had burned a hole in their hearts that will never be filled. They will never have enough. King Bela, what humans do is in their nature. To honor the truce is in ours. Prince Nuada, honor? Look at this place. Where is the honor in this? Father, you were once a proud warrior. When did you become their pet? Turns to the council. Prince Nuada, I have returned from exile to wage war and reclaim our land, our birthright. And for that I will call upon the help of all my people and they will answer. The good, the bad. Holds up the crown piece, Prince Nuada. And the worst. King Bela puts a hand to his own crown piece, the Golden Army. You cannot be that mad. Prince Nuada, perhaps I am. Perhaps they made me so. Scrolled all the way for this. How could any magical / mythical creature not side with him? Especially after the scene with the forest god. Such a sad ending to the movie. We die, and the world will be poorer for it. L from Death Note, because I don't want people committing murder. I don't think L's meant to be the villain. The show never shows light to be anything but evil. Also Megamind, dunno if he counts as a villain, but I'd want him as a friend. He's a super villain. All about the presentation. Not a movie but Moriarty? The same way Sherlock solved cases to somehow get high, Moriarty would plan the crimes. He wanted to play with Sherlock because he was as smart as him. Kinda feel that it gave purpose to his life. Same could be said for the Joker and Batman. To quote the Joker upon him hearing the news Batman was thought to have been killed. Without Batman, crime has no punchline. Edit. Small error. The creepers from Minecraft. This puts it best. You invade this pristine world, claiming it as your own simply by your presence. You slaughter innocent animals for their hides and their flesh. You devastate the landscape and gouge out the earth to build your monuments to vanity. And yet you call me the monster. If this isn't in the Minecraft movie, I will be sorely disappointed. But, to be fair, they'll attempt to kill you before you do any of that. Even if you spend your time farming for food instead of hunting and replanting more trees than you cut down, and living in a simple farmhouse, they will hate you. Darth Vader / Anakin just went downhill quick for him. Poor guy. Does Stain from Boku no Hero Academia count? He's from an anime, but he does have a fair point. Stain had an interesting point, and it's cool to see another character whose motivation is entirely shaped by their perception of all might. But instead of trying to reform heroes or even just pulling a gentle criminal and defeating heroes in a honorable manner, Stain uses his powers to murder 17 people. His powers let him paralyze people, potentially for hours. He could have easily let them live after drawing blood and humiliated them with their defeat, but he chose to kill them instead. But honestly, given how the MHA universe treats people with scary quirks, I kind of feel bad for Stain. Considering his quirk and the way he looks, he never had a chance to fit in with normal society. The vast majority of the villains in the series were social outcasts before becoming outright villains, and most of them were outcasts because their quirk was a bad guy ability. Stain drinks blood, freaky appearance, obsessive tendencies. Toga drinks blood, obsessive tendencies, twice, unstable clones. Main ostracized for expressing her identified gender. Even Shigaraki straight up decays anything he touches. All of them have quirks that kept them isolated and feared by their peers. It makes sense that a bunch of superpowered pariahs would rebel against the status quo. The Great Depression from Grapes of Wrath. Given 2020, it'd go with the asteroid in Armageddon. This is from real life, but I gotta admit I was rooting for Killdozer. As a native, you watch those old cowboy movies and just sit there thinking, I dunno, I'd want to kill people killing all my family too. I'd agree with Bane from TDKR if his true intentions weren't to blow up Gotham. Yeah, aside from the kill everyone anyway part of the plan, I'm 100% down with the League of Shadows methodology. Lex Luthor, though even more in the comics, especially when it comes to Superman. Earth needs to have protection against a god-like being who holds almost any power you can imagine. I don't care if he's good and moral intelligent beings. Don't make rash deductions all the time, and it only takes one time where Superman is angry to kill all of humanity, and it wouldn't be that difficult. Lex Luthor is absolutely in the right to not want a human with god-like powers decide of what is right and wrong, and be able to act on it. Way too dangerous. Everyone thinks they are right. In the end, Superman is just that, a normal dude who's super strong. Tai Lung, Kung Fu Panda 2008. He was trained his entire life to become the Dragon Warrior. His adopted father told him he was destined for greatness, and he did everything to become one of the most powerful warriors of his time, to the point that the mere mention of his name invokes fear and panic in Master Shifu. He was robbed of his destiny, and his father was weak and did nothing when Master Oogway refused to give him the Dragon Scroll. It wasn't not being the Dragon Warrior that made him snap and turn evil, it was Master Shifu's reaction. I'd be pretty pissed if I trained my entire life to have something and to not only not get it, but also not get the approval of the man who raised me when I failed his expectations. My head being filled with dreams, expectations, and wanting the approval of my father figure, and that was taken and shattered. That'd probably be enough to make me snap too. Menendez from Black Ops 2. He was based as Duck. Cordis die. Tom. I duck and hate Jerry. Little Duck. Principal Vernon in The Breakfast Club. Just giving the kid some discipline / doing his job. Vaguely recall him saying he was going to track Bender down after he left school and beat the chiz out of him. Which, you know, pretty uncool. Sharpay from High School Musical. There are a lot of politics in high school theater and choir. I would be pissed if I was focusing my time and energy for years in order to get lead roles, and then some randoms come in and steal my program from me. Yeah, and then they aren't even freaking committed, like Troy didn't even got in time to the audition. WTH. Not a movie, but Team Plasma have a point. They went the wrong way about it. I really liked N as well. Gestus is my problem, it's the way he treated N ticks me off. I liked N's version of Team Plasma, not Gestus half. The bugs in Starship Troopers. Humans started that fight. Deleted. I thought Kara's mom was the villain. Nevertheless, duck those locker room girls. Monica from Doki Doki. If you kill people in video game without hesitating, why would it become a problem if she do it so? She made it clear that she knew it was all a game. And she is cute as duck. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's ducking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.